Hi everyone, welcome to the Bridgeport River Research Program Spring 2021 Symposium. My name is Devin Healy and I'm the Science Operation Coordinator at HarborWatch. HarborWatch is a water quality research and education program that is part of Earthplace. The mission of HarborWatch is to improve water quality and ecosystem health in Connecticut. We work towards this goal by educating students, conducting field and lab research, and collaborating with municipal partners throughout Fairfield County. Since HarborWatch got its start in 1986, over 1,000 students and volunteers have been trained by our staff. Due to precautions taken to avoid the spread of COVID-19, we held our river research program as a virtual program this year. The Bridgeport River Research Program provided Bridgeport High School students with the opportunity to learn remotely from HarborWatch staff on a variety of topics, while also participating in hands-on activities in a safe way. The Bridgeport River Research Program included weekly discussions on water quality and research topics, an interactive demonstration day to learn research methods, a student field day to collect and analyze water samples, and a virtual symposium. The 2021 Bridgeport River Research Program included 35 students from 9 different Bridgeport high schools in all different grade levels from grades 9 to 12. We want to thank our funders for their generous support for this program. An anonymous donor advised fund at the Fairfield County Community Foundation, the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, and the Long Island Sound Stewardship Fund. We couldn't have done this program without the help from these generous supporters. Now on to Katie, who is going to tell us about our field day methods.
Hi, I'm Katie Marchand, and I go to the Bridgeport Regional Vocational Aquaculture School. And the field day methods, each student who wished to participate in the student field day was provided a complete field sampling kit. Students were also provided with a specific location to sample and detailed instructions. Field day methods continued. On the afternoon of April 7th, 2021, students collected samples of water at different designated sites throughout the greater Bridgeport area. Students followed sampling guidelines to ensure the integrity of their samples. Students also used test strips to measure water quality parameters in the field.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Mary Donato, and I am the HarborWatch Research Assistant, and I'm going to talk about what happened to the student samples after they were dropped off with HarborWatch team members. So the water samples were analyzed by HarborWatch staff in the lab for indicator bacteria. The student water samples were processed during a live stream and also read the next day during a live stream, both which happened on Zoom. And this allowed the students to learn and participate at all steps of the process, even if they couldn't physically be with us in the lab as we would have liked them to. So now we're going to talk about the results of the student field day and what the students saw in their water samples. So here you can see a map that encompasses the entire area that the students conducted their field testing in generally the greater Bridgeport area, with each dot indicating a different student sampling site. Here you'll see the ammonia results, and we had about 70% of the sites having an ammonia concentration that was less than 0.5 milligrams per liter. And if you look at the map, you'll see that those green circles all indicate 0 milligrams per liter, whereas there are just a few yellow ones being a little higher at 0.5 milligrams per liter, and a few sites that we did not have access to that kind of information for. But we see that 70% of these sites are above sort of that threshold that we were looking at, and so that is great. And on this next slide, you'll see our bacteria results. It's the same map, but the key is a little bit different because we're looking at bacteria now, and 93% of our student sites passed the state criteria for bacteria concentrations. Each circle now on this map indicates a freshwater site where we tested for E. coli, and a triangle on the map indicates a saltwater or brackish site where we tested for enterococci. And as you can see, those darker green colors in the circles indicate very low concentrations of bacteria, whereas the red dot would indicate a higher concentration, and we'll have our students discuss that in a little bit. And you'll see in the triangles that a bright green, sort of light green color indicates very low concentrations, whereas the dark green triangles are still a pretty low concentration. So we're happy to see some pretty low bacteria concentrations at these sites. So next we're going to hear from a small set of the students who participated this spring who wanted to share their data with everyone, and they will present their findings. So first up, we will hear from Anna.
My name is Anna Aguirre, and I go to the Fairchild Wheeler Interdistrict Multi-Magnet Campus. And my location was at Birdseye Dock in Stratford, Connecticut. So this location was closer to ships and cars, so more closer to human contact, and it's used for fishing. So there was a waterfront deck and a fishing pier. Although this place was kept moderately clean than most docks, the water was clear for the most part, but no data has been in past years been tested at this place, so I was unable to find a comparison. Although there was no dangerous levels or no clear signs of pollution from me, but the enteroc oxide level was moderately low. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. Next up is Mac.
I'm Matt Capodanno. I go to Bridgeport Regional Vocational Aquaculture School. My test site was along the Mill River in Fairfield CT. The Mill River is a 17-mile long river, and my test site had clear water with lots of leaves floating. My test site had no visible evidence of significant pollution, and my results showed expected levels of E. coli and elevated levels of ammonia. No additional monitoring is needed at this time.
Thank you, Mac. Next up is Eden.
Hi, my name's Eden. I go to the Bridgeport Aquaculture School. I tested the site called Sasko 1, and it's right next to Southport Beach. While I was there, I noticed that there was a lot of sand around because it is right next to a beach. And there were also ducks next to the testing site. I also took the test in a very strong current. There was also no rain prior, like a few days before or anything. So that will affect the pollution. There was no evidence of pollution there, most likely because of no rain, and it was a really nice day. And the results concluded that the mouth of the river is very healthy, and there's no need for additional monitoring at this time because it is healthy.
Thank you, Eden. Right, next up is Melody.
My name is Melody Olivon. I go to Central High School. My site was at Ash Creek in Bridgeport. It's close to Harbor Watch's Rooster 4.5. The river did flow underneath the bridge, and there was swan and geese nearby the site. Water did appear brownish, but that is no reason to believe that the site is polluted. This site has been monitored in the past, but there's no data for comparison. Additional monitoring is not necessary for the site.
Thank you, Melody. Next up is Erica.
My name is Erica Pinta from the Bridgeport Regional Vocational Aquaculture School. I tested the site OX2 in Bridgeport CT. The river flowed under a road. There were minimal leaves and dirt in the water. There was no visible significant pollution in the water. The sample was very high in E. coli and elevated in ammonia levels. The site was previously tested and came up to 5,172.1 mpm over 100 milliliters in E. coli. Considering this isn't the first time the site has been this high, more testing should be completed.
Thank you, Erica. Next up is Alana.
I'm Alana Reyes from the Bridgeport Regional Vocational Aquaculture School. I went to the tributary site upstream of Pequannock 3. There were ducks and similar animals near the river, but not many other organisms like that. It wasn't very deep because when I put the bag for collecting samples into the water, it was more shallow. It's not especially close to buildings, and it has a lot of trees around it. There was no evidence of pollution. The pH amount was slightly acidic at 3.8, and the best pH for organisms is 7 pH units. So there was no ammonia, total chlorine, free chlorine, or total alkalinity, so there weren't any risks of dangerous levels. The maximum E. coli for recreational parks is about 576 mpn per 100 milliliters, where Pequannock is much lower at 6.3 mpn per 100 milliliters. Thus, I don't think that this site needs any additional monitoring.
Thank you, Alana. Next up is Campbell.
I'm Campbell. I go to the Bridgeport Aquaculture School. The site that I tested was on Ash Creek. The area I tested wasn't near any other Harbor Watch sites. I saw a lot of birds at the site. They were mostly brants. There was also a lot of seaweed in the water, including some in the water that I sampled. I did not see any evidence of pollution there. So for the results I got, the pH was around the expected value for an estuary. There was no chlorine or ammonia, and the level of bacteria was well below the maximum, which means the water passes. And since most of the things are normal and the bacteria is low, I do not think there is any other monitoring needed.
Thank you, Campbell. Next up is Fee.
Hi, my name is Fee Juanino, and I go to Fairchild Wheeler Interdistrict Multi-Magnet Campus. And the location of my site was on Farmill River in Shelton. And some things that I noticed was that there were many leaves and twigs in the water, and there were also a lot of birds and squirrels surrounding the river. From what I could tell, there was very minimal evidence of pollution. And something that I noticed from my data was that the pH of this water could have been a little bit less acidic, but it's still within an expected range for the water source. And because of all of the data that I collected, I concluded that no more monitoring of this site is needed.
So that's it for all of our students. And next we're going to hear from Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete Ferboni, and I am the Associate Director for Education for the Harbor Watch program. And we want to take a look at a couple of priority sites that were identified for additional research. One was monitored by Erica Pinto, who is a student at the Bridgeport Regional Vocational Aquaculture School in Bridgeport. And she found high bacteria levels at her site, which is Ox 2 and in the Ash Creek watershed. Her value was over 2.5 times that of the criterion for a single sample maximum, which is 576. So that caught our attention. And she also found that there were elevated ammonia levels at 0.5 milligrams per liter. So we decided that that site might be a good candidate for additional research. Another site was monitored by Mac Capoladano, where he found high ammonia levels at 0.5 milligrams per liter at his site on the Mill River, Mill 4. Some of the key lessons learned that the students gave us some feedback on is that they learned that what indicator bacteria means and how we measure it in both freshwater and saltwater. They learned that the indicator for freshwater was E. coli and the indicator of saltwater was Enterococcus. So depending upon the site they chose would depend upon the indicator we would be testing for. They also learned how water testing for indicator bacteria is conducted in the lab, because we were broadcasting our lab testing as the student samples were brought to the lab. The students got a chance to see and view this while we were conducting the test in the lab. Because of COVID, we didn't have any students coming into the lab as a precaution. Students also learned the difference between storm and sanitary water systems and how they can affect water quality. Sometimes if a sanitary water system has a break in it or a rupture, it can leak into a storm drain, and that can get into a river system and bacteria can enter into the water there. They also learned about the parameters they tested for during their field day. Those included pH, ammonia, chlorine, and hardness, and also total alkalinity and free, and I think chlorine was also free and total chlorine as well. They also learned the difference between non-point and point source pollution. And they also learned about why water quality is tested and monitored throughout Connecticut. And we want to thank our students who participated with us. They did great work, and we hope that they learned more about water quality and maybe augmented the stuff they were learning in their classroom testing. And also, if anybody would like more information about Harbor Watch, they can go to our website, www.harborwatch.org. And thanks again.